and let us all do we can to build a better future.
I love it when these politicians are confronted. And this took place last night while the post-duopoly show was going on. Congressman Adam Kinzinger was confronted by colleagues of Jose Vega. And the thing is, a lot of these politicians currently right now are in full support of being indifferent to what's happening in Gaza. Currently, as we all know, there is still the ongoing conflict. Civilians are being struck. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's going to be peace anytime soon. But not only are these congressmen and women indifferent to what's happening between Israel and Palestine, they're also full on board with the ongoing conflict that's happening between Russia and Ukraine. It seems like the only people who are getting nice, wonderful treats this Halloween is big money, corporations, the military-industrial complex, big oil, etc., etc. So I want to pull up this video here and show what Kynan and Robert L. Castle did in regards to calling out, and standing up to Representative Kinzinger. So let's go ahead and play this video. Shout out again to Jose Vega and his colleagues. Keep speaking truth to power. This video will be a little bit difficult to watch because, boy, oh boy, did they swarm on them right away. Renegade, defending democracy and liberty in our divided country. Who do you think divided it? Politicians? Who do you think did it? You guys, the politicians and corporate media.
Congressman, I think the only thing we need to discuss here today is a need for a ceasefire in Gaza. November marks the killing of Yitzhak Rabin, who sought peace between Israel and Palestine. He said that if you wish for peace, it has to be through economic progress. He said that you don't get security with a tank or a helicopter or with weapons. You get it with hope. You get it with education. You get it with access to health care. That's what he promised the Palestinians. Okay? Why is it that 1 million young people in Palestine are going to die because the United States can't implement what was agreed to between Rabin and Arafat? We need a ceasefire now. We need a ceasefire. Are you okay? You called.
He's grabbing him by the throat. He's grabbing him by the throat. Whoa.
You're a warmonger. You're dangerous.
Are you next? The fact of the matter is that economic cooperation is the only solution to the conflict. There can be no final solution to the Palestinian question. We cannot have a final solution to the Palestinian question. We cannot have a final solution to the Palestinian question.
Now, here's the thing. It's interesting to see the people constantly talk down and push and be disrespectful to people who do want to challenge these politicians. But it's so disheartening to see, again, the fact that people are brainwashed and easily swayed by politicians. I want to pull up this video here just moments after being dragged out. 15 seconds, though.
Please put your hands off me.
Get out.
You put your hands off me. Okay? Put your hands off me. I am getting out. You do not have the right to assault me. You're expressing freedom of speech.
Now, there is one more video here. It's just the moment when they do get thrown out, and you can see the absolute pushback and violence by the security when Adam is being questioned by the activists. Let's play this video here.
Are you okay? You called.
He's grabbing him by the throat. He's grabbing him by the throat. Whoa.
You're a warmonger. You're dangerous.
Are you next? The fact of the matter is that economic.
So what can we take away from this? Well, first of all, number one, this needs to keep happening more. Calling out these politicians, making them uncomfortable, addressing the fact that they are allowing this narrative to continue on, especially the Democratic politicians, that they care about the issues. I want to pull up this article here, and it's something that the Democrats are going to have to come to terms with. Left revolts over Biden's staunch support of Israel amid Gaza crisis. Now, every single Democratic politician during the early point of 2023 has either endorsed Joe Biden or has given their verbal support or has been fully on board with the Biden-Harris administration. Now, since that has happened, a lot of people are waking up to the fact that nothing has truly fundamentally changed under the Biden-Harris administration. Now, what does that mean? Well, the kids are still in cages. Corruption is still running amok in Washington, D.C. And of course, the military-industrial complex keeps pushing along. Now, when we see these horrific images in Gaza that's taking place, that's being done by the Israeli military, there are many liberals, Democrats, and people who are bullied perhaps into voting for Joe Biden who are waking up to the fact that if this was under Trump, so many people would be calling this out, but yet corporate media remains indifferent. The Democratic politicians remain indifferent. You had about 300 staffers reach out to Bernie Sanders, former staffers of his campaign in 2016 and in 2020, reach out to Bernie and say, hey, please, can you be on board with a ceasefire? Can you do a similar resolution that's happening in the House of Representatives calling for a ceasefire? And Bernie didn't do that. John Fetterman, of all people. Well, I don't know if he could put together a coherent sentence, but when he's confronted by constituents or called out, he's not going to change his mind. And his security quickly, throws the people out who do question him. These Democrats, be they people like Representative Kinzinger or AOC or Senator Bernie Sanders or Senator Fetterman or either that Joe Biden himself, they're not going to change at all. And a lot of progressives and independents who perhaps vote Democrat need to come to terms with this. You need to wake up to the fact that the Democrats are no different than the Republican politicians. Simple as that. On Wednesday afternoon, hundreds of liberal Jewish activists staged sit-ins in the Capitol offices of top Democrats, including the Senate office of progressive champion Bernie Sanders, to demand a ceasefire in the escalating war between Israel and Hamas. As they sang in Hebrew and prayed for peace, the House floor resumed legislative activity for the first time in weeks after the election of a new Republican speaker, Congressman Mike Johnson. And you can take a wild guess how Mike Johnson's going to feel about giving more aid to Israel. And don't worry, like any other typical politician, he's going to make sure that the machine keeps on moving along. In his first act, Johnson brought to the floor a resolution declaring U.S. solidarity with Israel after Hamas rampaged through Israeli cities, killing 1,400 people and taking more than 200 hostages, Americans among them. Nearly all House Democrats voted to approve the measure, save for a resolute minority who dissented, citing its failure to address the thousands of Palestinians killed in Israel's retaliatory bombing campaign of Gaza. Hey, The Guardian, do you have the death toll from that? Because it's probably like around 3,000 and rising up and away. War is eternal, unfortunately, folks. The discontent on display in Washington was a testament of the rising anger among the parties left over the response of Biden and Democratic leaders to Israel's war in Gaza. But as many progressives split from the White House over the U.S. staunchly pro-Israel stance, were also splits within the left itself, a sign of raw emotion stirred by the conflict. Nor were the scenes in the House the only signs of discontent as U.S. politics and civil society as a whole becomes increasingly roiled by Israel's response to the October 7th Hamas attack. The same afternoon, Joe Biden was asked about the rising Palestinian death toll. During a news conference at the White House, Biden replied that he had no confidence in the death count provided by the Gaza Health Ministry, which says nearly 7,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war began. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's a price of waging a war, Biden said in comments. The Council on American Islamic Relations described as shocking and dehumanizing. Online, many progressives accused Biden of further enabling violence against Palestinians and predicting that he would pay an electoral price next year with Muslim and Arab American voters who have emerged as an important Democratic constituency in recent elections. And here's the cuck himself, Bernie Sanders. A Gallup poll released on Thursday found that Biden's approval rating among Democrats plummeted 11 percentage points in 1 month to a record low of 75%. According to the survey, the drop was fueled by dismay among Democratic voters over Biden's support for Israel. Meanwhile, a poll released last week by the progressive firm Data for Progress found 66% of likely U.S. voters strongly or somewhat agree that the U.S. should call for a ceasefire. Now, what's interesting also to point out is that our current Congress, our president, are also calling to halt any kind of dissenting voices on college campuses. We talked about this on the Post-Duopoly show yesterday with RBN and Due Dissidents. And the Democrats, for a long time, seem to have capitalized and enjoyed their somewhat control over their constituents, people who would vote for them because, oh my goodness, we have to vote Democrat because the Republicans or Trump, Donald Trump, their orange boogeyman, the one who haunts them. We're seeing people push back and coming to the realization that the Democrats are no better. The Democrats say they care about social issues. The Democrats say they care about human rights. The Democrats say they care about progressive policies, but they never follow through with them. And this is something that diehard Democratic voters have to realize. Electoral politics will not save us. I already can see how everything's going to play out, especially in 2024. You're going to have so many Democratic politicians say to you and bombard you not only through television ads, but on YouTube and all the other social media ads as well, that we have to vote for Biden or whoever the Democrat nominee will be because Trump and the other Republicans are bad for America. It doesn't matter who sits in the White House, folks. Guess what? Goldman Sachs still has a seat at the table, and the rest of us are still going to be struggling to make ends meet. So when activists and organizers decide to step up and call out these politicians because they have money for war, we covered on this show on how Janet Yellen said the United States can afford 2 wars. Can the United States afford to take care of its people? Can the United States actually invest into its infrastructure? Can the United States, invest into education, Medicare for all, any kind of those policies? And the answer is they could, but they don't want to. So when we see activists and people call out politicians, and yes, I would expect the same thing to be done to Republican lawmakers as well. Call them out and challenge them. Make them uncomfortable. They don't deserve to be living their best lives, enjoying comfort, because these are the same people who enable policies that make our lives that much more difficult. Take a good look outside right now, and we're seeing Americans trying to figure out how they could put food on the table or pay their bills. But what still hurts my heart, and still painful to watch, is how many of our fellow Americans are still brainwashed, be they Democratic voters or Republican voters, listening to these politicians and thinking, yes, this person will fight for me. They won't fight for you. Here's the real truth. These politicians, they're thinking about their careers 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years down the road. You're not in their rear view mirror. You're underneath their tires. That's where you're at. So it's time for us to call them out for the jagoffs that they are.